San Martin have sent me their most recent SN0111 Submariner homage. This is more of a premium Submariner homage than their normal SN0017, I think it is, their Water Ghost. I don't think it's necessarily better made, I just think it has a more sort of premium look to it. The lugs have faceted, polished accents on them. Yeah, there's just a few little touches about this watch that make it look and feel to some degree a little bit more premium. It's got an enamel dial. They're offering it with two different sets of hands. Yeah, it is a beautifully made watch, but I've reviewed a lot of watches like this from San Martin, and so I thought I'd do something a little bit different in today's video. I do have a Rolex Submariner, but I also have a Baltany and a Cronos, and quite often in videos like this you'll hear me saying, oh, Baltany and Cronos and other brands come very, very close to the likes of San Martin, so I thought I'd just show you some macro shots of a genuine Rolex Submariner, this San Martin, but also a Baltany and a very recent Cronos that I've been sent. I really like filming comparison videos like this because it's only when you see watches side by side at the same time that you really get a good feel for how well or poorly they've been made. And I'm always going on and on about how well made Cronos watches are, Baltany watches, San Martin watches, and well, I've been known recently to comment on the finishing of Rolex watches perhaps not being that great. So I was really looking forward to filming this, and yeah, I've taken all the shots, and in this video I'm going to show you these watches side by side. Now, if I was to show you every single detail on all of these watches side by side in this video, it would be an hour long, if not more. So I've just taken some of the more interesting elements of these watches, taken all these shots at basically the same time to make sure all of the shots are comparable. And of course, I don't think this is necessarily going to be an accurate reflection of these brands' entire collection. What I'm basically saying is just remember, I'm showing you pictures of one watch from each brand, and I'm not even showing you the whole watches. So just take this video for what it is, an opportunity to look at pictures of these watches in great detail side by side. And yeah, it should help us start to build up an idea of, you know, how good the finishing is on these watches. And the finishing on all these watches is really, really good. This video is going to feel less impactful, I think, because all of these watches are beautifully well made. There's not really a bad example here, so you're not going to see all these watches up against, you know, a horror show, for example. Right, let's get on with it. I'm going to start by showing you some brushing and polishing on the outside of these watches, the bracelets and the cases. The brushing on the bracelets, I mean, it's much of a muchness, isn't it? It's just brushing. I don't think any of these watches have been brushed badly at all. Some have brushing that's perhaps a little bit more fine than others, but yeah, I don't find the brushing on any of these watches either too fine or too coarse. All of these watches have some polishing on them, and actually the polishing on all these watches is pretty good. Although, oddly enough, I think the polishing on the Baltany looks to be the most smooth. I mean, I'm not comparing identical facets or surfaces, unfortunately, because all of these watches are quite different. The Cronos and the San Martin have polished chamfered edges on the case, and they look, yeah, pretty good, fairly similar. One thing I am seeing on the Rolex is streaking. I saw this on the Rolex GMT Master 2 that I featured on my channel a little while ago. It's not perhaps as obvious on this particular watch or at this angle, but there are sort of diagonal lines all over the sides of this case. And this is a brand new, genuine Rolex Submariner. This hasn't been refinished. This is a factory finish watch. I took the plastic off this watch, and I've already proven in another video that this is a genuine Rolex Submariner, so don't even think about writing in the comments section it's a fake. It is not. It is absolutely 100% genuine. And yeah, look at that. You can see the lines, the machining lines on the side of the case. Not great really, is it? The transitions between the two different types of finishing are good on all these watches. Some I think are a little bit better than others, but they're all really, really good. The corners are all pretty good as well. Again, I think some perhaps a little bit better than others, but yeah, I mean, they're all pretty good. The applied indexes, well, 3 of them have fairly common triangles. At the 12 o'clock, the Cronos has a really interesting, beautifully finished applied index, which can't really, I don't think, be compared to the other 3. But at least the other 3 can be compared, and yeah, this is a very similar theme to that which we saw in the comparison video that I shot using a GMT Master 2 and a San Martin homage. The San Martin does appear to be more crisp, more defined, better finished. Yeah, it's not white gold, of course it's not. And the Rolex, looks to be identical to that we saw on the GMT Master 2. The Baltany also looks pretty good, doesn't it? Now I measured the gaps between the end links and the lugs, and the Cronos came out last, essentially, with a total space of 0.08 millimeters. That's not both sides. I moved the end links over, and that's the total gap. So basically 0.04 millimeters either side of the end link, which is pretty good. The Baltany was next. That was 0.04 millimeters. So yeah, split between the two sides, 0.02 millimeters either side of the end link. And the San Martin and Rolex came out basically the same. It was a real struggle to get a feeler gauge that was 1/100th of a millimeter thick in that gap between the end link and the lugs. I mean, the gap was basically non-existent. Just incredible, I have to say. I then looked at the hands. I focused on the hour hands. I took a couple of shots of each hand, 2 different angles to capture any imperfections on those hands. And yeah, all 4 hour hands had imperfections on them. Apparently this is quite a common thing with Rolex watches. These are handmade watches, and yeah, apparently their hands usually have scratches and imperfections on them. Of course, they never mention that in their marketing material, but yeah, apparently that is actually very, very common. So yeah, all of these watches have imperfections, whether it be dust, debris on the hands, or little micro scratches. Very difficult to see these imperfections without a macro lens, but they are there. Then I zoomed into the logos. 3 watches have printed logos and 1 has an applied logo. So the San Martin we need to, I guess, ignore. The printing on the Rolex is definitely the best. The Cronos has been done a little bit differently, but seems to be okay. And the Baltany as well looks to be pretty good, doesn't it? Now, the last thing I wanted to have a look at was the numbers on the date wheels. The Baltany doesn't have a date complication, so I ignored that watch. The San Martin and the Cronos look very, very similar because they have Seiko NH movements inside them. The print on the Rolex date wheel is definitely the best. But as you can see, this one's got an imperfection on it. And that's not the only imperfection I've seen on this Rolex. In fact, I'm going to produce a video where I run through all the QC issues and imperfections that I'm aware of with this particular watch. I think we need to bust that myth that Rolex watches are beautifully made, exquisite luxury timepieces, because, well, they're not. But they are iconic watches, of course. Tool watches, handmade watches, of course they're not going to be perfect. My one isn't, but I still love it, right guys? Let me know what you think in the comments section of this comparison video. Nice to get some of these shots out there. Yeah, I think it helps us to understand where these watches sit in the affordable watch market, and I'm definitely going to be producing more videos like this, right guys? As always, a massive thank you from me to you for tuning in. I do appreciate it.